have a very friendly face, so it's easy to...
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've been working hard.
Very good.
Welcome to the Thoughts on Digital podcast, ideas and insight about the ever-changing world of digital marketing. Hi, my name's Adam Levine, and today I'm sitting down with Steve Jackett, the Chief Operating Officer at All Things Media, and today we're talking about data-driven retail experiences. How's it going, Steve?
It's going well. How are you, Adam?
Very good. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So I thought today would be a fun day. We just came back from NRF, which is National Retail Federation, and we're talking about some things that we took away from that conference.
Sure.
And one of those things that that I know you found very interesting was how data is being used or not being used when it comes to retailers and what's out there. So, why don't you tell me some of your thoughts on
Sure.
Data collection and how that works in the retail space or maybe isn't working?
Definitely, yeah. I think everybody's hearing that data is so important, and most companies and retailers out there are well aware of the fact that they need to be using data. Data is king, and it's going to lead to better profit margins and ROI and everything that they need to be successful in their space.
Right.
Despite that, it seemed like NRF this year and probably recent years is still struggling with answering the question of how you actually use that data.
Sure.
Everybody knows that you need to have it. Not everybody knows. Very few people seem to know exactly what to do with it once you have it.
Right. It's a very powerful thing, but if you don't know what it is, how to use it or how to apply it, it really doesn't matter if you have it at all.
Exactly. And one of the things that I think makes this a relatable topic to most people is that data mining or collecting, even though it's had some recent high-profile breaches, across banking and all other retail industries as well.
Yeah, I'm a victim myself.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's kind of lumped into that.
So it's a very real thing, and you feel very taken advantage of,
Yeah.
So it is a very real thing for companies to be aware of.
It's kind of shadowy. It's behind the scenes. People, aren't aware of. They're clicking on terms and conditions and not really reading them. Who reads 100-page terms and conditions about where your data is being placed or stored or how securely? But despite that, there doesn't seem to be an overall reluctance among most consumers nowadays to still provide that data, especially where it will lead to a better overall customer experience. So if you knew that by, the traditional examples are pretty easy. You go into a store, you purchase something, they say, hey, we'd love to give you a coupon or put you in our loyalty program, and every 5 times that you come here, maybe you get $10 off or a free sandwich at Jersey Mike's, whatever it is. People are comfortable with that, and there's an obvious reward or return on providing that data. So it's kind of easily discerned by the customer why they would actually release that data and be okay with that. And most people have been doing that for years, so they're familiar. It's really more the kind of neural network or the connections that the companies are now trying to make, which are far more advanced, where you're not only trying to understand what the person's purchased in the past, you're suggesting new purchases, you're trying to upsell them on related products that might be useful. Amazon is obviously great at this. We've all seen when you go to your search history, it will suggest other things based on that history. As you're putting things in your cart, it's saying, hey, most people who buy this also buy this. Or,
it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Did you remember an HDMI cable? You probably need a longer one.
I've been getting alerts that say, based on things I've looked at, they're just sending me suggestions for things that I might like as push alerts.
Yeah.
Not even when I'm in the app, it's obviously it's in the background, but a push alert that says, hey, we saw this new product out there. We thought you might be interested in. So it's like it's borderline creepy, but I've also accepted that that's how this system that I bought into works.
Right.
And and I'm not gonna lie, I clicked it. It was last night. I clicked it and I was like, all right, let me see what you got.
That's the thing. And when you click that company now knows that you're going to click that, or you're a potential customer via that channel. Other people, that may not be the case. And if one of our parents doesn't click that 5 times in a row, they may not see that after a certain amount of time. So that's really kind of where the smart retailers are starting to make real headway with data. It's not just simply having it for the sake of hoarding information on your customers, but it's turning around and using it in real time in some cases, or close to real time, and making informed decisions about how they're going to engage you as a customer, or hopefully repeat customer.
Sure. So I know that a lot of the idea of repeat customer and how they're going to use that data ties into who is on that account, right? So there's an interesting thing happening where, and we were talking about this before the show, where multiple people are using single accounts, whether it's, using 6 people logging into Netflix, which they actually allow, they allow that. But then as a result, you're getting, information from other people, and you're starting to see, it's a kind of an interesting side effect, is the peek into that other person's, life.
Right.
But, why don't we talk a little bit about how that works when it's not just, on Netflix or show recommendations, but when it comes to product recommendations?
Yeah. And, I definitely think that happens. I think in some cases people are extending the actual terms and conditions, but for the most part, you're right. Companies like Netflix have an understanding that people have the ability to view their content on multiple devices in multiple locations, from work, from home.
Right.
So there is an understanding that even using it correctly, like I'm sure most of you out there are.
I think that at the end of the day, if those companies, yes, if it's a contentious thing where, for those companies, or some of those companies that feel like, they might be taken advantage of, I think at the end of the day, it still drives brand awareness, and it still allows more people to have eyeballs who then talk about their product, their shows, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I do think that it is, in the end, beneficial for those companies.
And, I don't want to go on too far a tangent here, but, I would say that all these companies are whether people think they're beating the system or not, these companies are aware of who's using it and where and how often, and they're pretty savvy to the ways that people might be using their product, and as such, they will adapt their business over time based on that. If it's no longer a viable business model to allow 6 people to have that same account, maybe it goes to 3, maybe it goes to, there's some other mechanism for them to monitor.
They're not dumb.
But to your broader question about, how that data is being looked at and where it sometimes fails, in my estimation, really comes from a couple personal shopping experiences. Whenever you go out there and you're shopping for appliances, let's say, these are generally once every decade, or hopefully more, decisions. And if you go to, I don't know, wherever you're buying your appliances, Home Depot or something, and you start to search for washer dryer or refrigerators, all of a sudden you start to see that in the ads for weeks to come.
Sure.
Which is kind of strange. Most people probably made that decision and move on.
Right.
But the data kind of lags it to some degree. I think, I'm sure retailers out there are going to get a lot better with this.
Right.
But from my perspective, that's one example where the data kind of lags in a way that's obvious and really takes you out of the experience. It looks like it's very deliberate on the part of that retailer to position, an ad or a product in front of you based on past history in a way that's not very successful.
Speaking about data that is sort of blindly put out there, that 9 times out of 10 probably works just fine.
Yeah.
But in that one instance when it doesn't work, it could go, catastrophically wrong.
Yeah.
And it was an article that I was reading where there was a woman who was having a baby. And, so she was getting all these baby magazines, mother magazines, things about, all that. She was getting coupons for, baby stores. And then tragically there was a miscarriage and the ads never stopped.
Yeah.
And it was a data-driven, result. But
Right.
a year later, when I believe she had called and really tried to say, look, hey, I don't need this anymore. Please stop sending them. And I
Yeah.
think some of them, did stop sending things.
Right.
But it's something like about a year later,
Yeah.
there was the congratulations, your baby's a year old now. What do you
Right,
need?
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
devastating to somebody in that position.
Yeah.
And it's just a data-related problem that
Right.
could really cause harm to an individual mentally, and then also of course that person's not going to be kind to the brand from that point on.
Sure,
You've lost that person.
You've lost them,
but you've also
and
potentially
anybody
done some harm.
Right. I mean, the wide-reaching aftershocks or
Right.
ripples, from making the wrong decisions with data can be, pretty catastrophic to a business.
And I don't know,
as well as data breaches, as we see with companies like Facebook, and
Sure.
then trying to rebuild that trust with customers.
Sure. That's why I think there does need, and I'm sure these companies are working on these things and trying to make them better and improve on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very strong case for why it needs to be more than one layer of, we've got this data,
Mm-hmm.
now we just assume. There's a large assumption that comes with that data.
Right.
This is what they bought, this is what they must like
Right.
forever.
Right.
That sort of floodgate is open now,
Right.
and it's not, there needs to be some sort of way to monitor and check in and figure out and tune what that person might be into. Because whether it's, something as, devastating as, the death in a family, down to just, I don't need a washer and dryer, I bought one last week, why would you,
Right.
for 4 months send me the same
Yeah.
thing? There needs to be some sort of, adaptation in that space where
Yeah.
you can have a more successful, I guess,
Certainly.
rollout for your customers,
Yeah.
and just so it makes for a better experience in
Right.
general.
Yeah, and some of the things are far, less intrusive. It's just a question of when your product is going to be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I had this recently on Amazon where, they indicated I should get it by Wednesday. If you don't get it by Wednesday nowadays, and they said you were getting it by Wednesday, that could be a big problem, especially
Right,
if
if
you're
you're
catching
counting-
a
if you're
flight
counting on it,
Thursday
yeah.
morning and
Sure.
you needed that product.
Sure.
So, that's just another example where I think data can go wrong, and or you could attempt to over deliver to someone and really come up short, and then reap the consequences of underwhelming a customer in that experience.
Sure. I know that, just working with data and working with analytics, we're trying to do what we can on our end.
Sure.
When we're putting a product out there,
Yeah.
there's at least, we've made strides trying to do focus groups with, if it's something we're doing for automotive, we're going to, talk
Yeah.
to dealers. We're going to go out there and, see what the product that we made, see how it worked, see if it was doing well. So there's things like that, can be done,
Mhm.
and,
Yeah.
really get on the ground for, and not just data that's collected, but also like
Sure.
the human side of data.
Yeah. All Things Media is really well positioned to do usability testing if we need to, field testing and research in advance of really building out a product for one of our clients. I think one of the real strengths of ATM is being able to deliver on a multi-channel basis. Nowadays, as I said earlier, it's not just what, there's not one way to deliver information to a typical customer nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the ability here to deliver everything from videos to apps to game experiences to in-store retail experials.
But finding ways of backing that with usable data.
Exactly. Most of the clients that we work with have a substantial amount of data that they've already been collecting over a period of years. In the automotive sector, these clients know a lot about their customers. They've been conducting research, and they get all sorts of customer feedback throughout the various channels. We can leverage that when we're working on projects for those clients. And again, I think it's one of the hallmarks of ATM is our ability to be adaptable and flexible, and not just give them the cookie cutter solution that might have worked 20 years ago or
Sure.
might work today but won't work in the future. I think that's a real strength of ours, is being able to, not only deliver a solution that's viable today across multiple channels, but also one that, it will meet their needs next year and 5 years down the road as well.
Nice. Do you have a, sort of a closing thought here? Do you have any advice for
Yeah.
if someone has, a product,
Mm-hmm.
they're a retailer out there and they're looking to promote their product and really connect with their customers,
Yeah.
but doing so, data driven, but with
Mm-hmm.
a meaning in a meaningful way. Do you have
Yeah.
any advice on how they should maybe, look at that
Yeah.
bigger picture?
My advice is probably going to come from Mr. Rogers, and that would be, just be yourself with it. Be honest and earnest about what you're trying to do. If a company wants to hold an event in a brick and mortar and solicit customer feedback in that space, it's very transparent. That's what you're doing. This is the purpose. We
Sure.
want people who like this brand to come and engage with others who like this brand, or to meet subject matter experts who can inform them of new product offerings. It's a very kind of transparent approach to mining information from those individuals. So, I guess if I had any advice, it would be, when you are collecting data, make it as clear as possible what you're collecting. And there's there's significant legislation out there nowadays, GDPR, et cetera,
Right.
that forces this. But I think, beyond that, retailers should take even a further step to go out of their way to be clear with their potential customers about why they're collecting that data, what they hope to do with it, and make it very clear to those customers, a la the product suggestions on Amazon, why this is good for you. The example I started with, if you get a free sandwich every 5 times you go to the store, to that restaurant, you're going to probably keep going back there if it's a good product and if it's a good price point.
I think the key takeaway is transparency among, retailers and having a very clear stated goal, because if you're transparent with your customers,
Exactly.
it's just, it's only going to benefit, everybody.
Right.
Because at that point there's nothing shady, there's no, misinterpretations,
Right.
and you can, have a more meaningful connection.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Take care. Ideas always go further when they're shared. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a comment on YouTube. Let us know what you think about today's topic. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.